I think I've kind of realized through my network and knowing lots of other people who do this, it's like there's so many different ways somebody can be successful and make money in real estate. It's really about what part's exciting to you, like
Yeah,
what
sure.
what do you want to do?
Welcome to the Wild West Real Estate Podcast. And now, here's your host, Mark Hinteman.
Today's guest has been a contractor, a multifamily investor, developer, and president of North Forty Capital LLC. I'd like to welcome Daniel Casey.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hi, Mark.
Daniel.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you on. Excited to interview you. You've got a unique background. And yeah, so let's jump in. So you are on the East Coast, right?
No, I'm on the West Coast. I'm
Oh,
up in Seattle.
oh,
And
that's right.
we're
That's right.
actually outside of Tacoma.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So did you grow up there?
No, I grew up in LA. I lived in kind of on the LA County Orange County border. Ended up attending UCLA for college, and then I've been up in the Seattle area ever since. So I've been up here 23 years, 24 years, something like that.
Okay. What brought you to Seattle?
So I knew I wanted to leave LA. I was really big into rock climbing when I was in high school, and so I thought I wanted to just go live somewhere with mountains, and I thought I would go to Colorado. But then in the same kind of in that whole transaction, while I was a freshman in college, my dad's job moved from Monrovia, Southern California, up to the Seattle area, and so I visited them a few times, on breaks during college, and I was like, well, this seems as good as anything, and so when I graduated from UCLA, I interviewed for jobs up in the Seattle area and I got hired with a firm out of Seattle.
Okay. What were you doing out of college out of UCLA?
So I thought I was going to be a CPA. So I went to my major at UCLA was mathematics and finance, and I got a job working for a big accounting firm. I worked for KPMG. If you've ever heard of them, they're one of the big six accounting firms. And I thought I was going to be a CPA, and that lasted for like a month before I realized that I was absolutely not going to be a CPA. I ended up working at KPMG for almost 2 years, but I never took the CPA exam, never became a CPA.
Really? So you immediately knew you got this great plum job, but you immediately hated it?
Yeah, well, I had never really grown up. My dad was a CPA. His career had started at Price Waterhouse, and he was very non-entrepreneurial. And so I was never really exposed to the concept of being an entrepreneur, but I probably always had it in my blood. And then it was like when I all of a sudden realized what, working for a big six accounting firm was going to really look like, it just really wasn't for me. And that's when I sort of started exploring alternatives and, kind of stumbled into the world of starting my own company.
Is that right? Did you feel constrained in that job? Is that
Well, I
revelation
probably
you had?
had it was kind of a worst case scenario because I was in a group that all they did was state and local government clients, and it was kind of like the fly out Sunday evening, fly back late Friday evening, 52 weeks a year. So and it was just completely living on the road, and I was just kind of, I did there was some fun aspects to traveling, and I did it for a while, but it was kind of clear that this wasn't going to be a long-term, sustainable thing.
Yeah. In addition to the grind of traveling, did you did you find that you didn't love being a CPA?
Yeah, well, I think I had always so my desire in being a CPA was always because I had this I kind of thought that being a CPA was a good path to getting into kind of the C-suite of corporate America. So like I was never wanting to be a CPA because I loved accounting. I wanted to be a CPA because I viewed it as like this gateway to, maybe eventually being a CFO or something like that. So I
Okay.
was always into business. Like that was the thing. Like I just didn't understand that, there were more routes than going to kind of traditional Fortune 500 corporate route. So yeah, so like it was always about business. I just hadn't really until I started as at KPMG, I hadn't really considered starting my own company.
What initiated that direction, becoming more entrepreneurial?
I think it was just the idea that I knew I didn't want to do what I was doing. And I probably didn't really, at the time, I had no other skill set. So like getting another job was going to simply be another accounting job, which I already knew I didn't like. And so I had a friend who, he and I kind of had kicked around a couple of other entrepreneurial ventures. And so we ended up starting a construction company. And the reason we did that was simply because it didn't take any capital to start it. And we actually started as a government contractor because at least our logic at the time was, the low bid gets the job. And so we figured we didn't even have to have a track record. All we had to do was underbid the other guy and we'd get the project. And that's what we did. We started out, our very first construction project we ever did was a seismic retrofit to a concrete bridge that goes over some railroad tracks, a couple towns away from where I live now.
Okay. How did you know how to do that?
We didn't. Like the thing is,
You
that was the
didn't.
beauty of the whole thing. We had no idea what we were doing. We read the spec book and, kind of asked questions and we just sort of winged it. I mean, it was it was comical how little we knew on the first couple of projects. And then we actually became kind of bona fide experts at it. I mean, at some point in time, we had done more, sub $5 million seismic retrofits on the West Coast than any other contractor. I mean, I forget the exact number. It's in, 87 maybe seismic retrofitting projects that we did over the course of about 10 years. So
Wow.
it started, we had no idea what we were doing when we started, but it turned out to be kind of a fun little niche.
Yeah, that sounds like a buddy comedy, like Chris Farley and David Spade starting a construction company and
There were elements of
underbidding,
that. I mean, we were swinging
underbidding.
the hammers and everything. It was three-quarters of the way through the first project before we hired our first employee. So
Really?
yeah, no,
And
it was
you,
literally just the two of us showing up and, you know, figuring out what to do.
yeah. And what was your first thing? Was it like a railroad
It,
bridge?
it, it was a seismic retrofit, and the essence of the job where we were widening the pier caps underneath a bridge. So if you think
A
about a bridge,
bridge.
it's typically like there's concrete piers, and
Yeah.
then there's
Yeah.
girders that sit on those piers. And one of the standard schemes of seismic retrofits are you make the pier cap wider so that if you think about an earthquake, if that pier cap starts moving, it has further that it can move before the girder falls off of it. So that's kind of a pretty standard thing. And we had never done it before, but we basically added 9 inches of concrete to either side of the pier cap on two piers underneath this bridge.
Wow. That sounds precarious.
Yeah, no, I mean it's common. I laugh at the fact that we tried to do that knowing nothing about what we were doing at the time, but got it
Yeah,
done. It worked. Um,
totally.
you know,
And where did you go from there? Did you grow your contracting business?
we did. We grew it, but we never did it at like big scale. So we were always kind of into these niche projects. We used to like the idea of finding projects that were too complex for the little guys and too small for the big guys. And so we kind of stumbled into this, seismic retrofitting and widening and y- you know, and so they tended to be kind of $500,000 to $2.5 million projects. And I mean, at one point, I think we had up to like 40 employees, but it never felt like a well-oiled machine. Like we were never scaling it in some sort of a repeatable way. It was all kind of very ad hoc.
Yeah. Wow. Was it stressful to have 40 employees and
Well,
doing
yeah,
this
I mean,
dangerous
yes, it
work?
was. It was stressful because we were growing rapidly, and we were kind of always, you know, scrounging to, have, as you're growing, and these are all highly paid employees because it's all prevailing wage work. So these hourly guys are making 50, $60 an hour. So it really, it was stressful. And it was always like, how are we going to make payroll next week? It was never like we were never somehow sitting on like a nest egg of cash to it was always we started with zero capital and we barely ever got much more than that as we grew.
And how long did you do that for?
We did it for 10 years. We started in 2000 and it closed down in 2010. We were, I hate to say we were like a victim of the recession, but we definitely got affected by it. Like prior to the recession, the jobs we used to bid on would have 3 or 4 bidders per project. And so there was pretty decent profit margins in the work we were doing. And then what happened was, if you remember all the talk about shovel ready projects, like those were
Sure.
all public works jobs. And so there was actually a ton of work going on in roads and bridges in that time period, kind of 2009, 2010, 2011. But what happened was all the other contractors who didn't go out of business moved into the public works, arena. And so the kind of the last round of work we won in 2009, I think they had like 22 bidders on each project. And so all of a sudden, the profit margins just went from really nice to basically zero. And there was kind of just an awakening of like, we could literally do nothing and break even. Like, why are we were going to kind of like in our final year of operation, we were going to almost double in size and, on almost no margin. So, and at the time, my business partner, he was engaged to get married, and he was wanting to go do other things, and so we ended up shutting that down and kind of starting over in 2010.
Okay, interesting. And I had heard and I remember in 2008 that, as you are I'm sure well aware of, like in the lead up to 2008, there was overbuilding and oversupply of a lot of single family houses, and then it completely crashed. A lot of contractors and builders went through difficult times, and a lot of them, I think, I've tracked that, like that's part of a contributing factor to why there's a lack of supply now, is because some of them were gun shy coming out of '08 and took a long time to get going again on the building, plus the millennial generation. Does that sound right to
Yeah,
you?
I think it's a fairly accurate description. We weren't involved at all in residential or commercial building construction at the time, but yeah, I mean that's kind of exactly what happened. I mean, I think, you know, residential and commercial building, especially up in our area, I mean, it just ground to a complete halt. There was absolutely nothing going on. And so all those contractors either had to shut their doors or, find some new creative way to make money.
Yeah. And do you still have a hand in that area?
No, we don't really, with the exception of one really specialized type of repair to steel bridges, which I get maybe like a phone call a year for. We don't do any bridge. We don't do any kind of, we haven't done any civil work other than what heat straightening of steel bridges, which is this weird niche since 2010.
Okay. And
So
what do you primarily focus on?
in terms of construction work, we kind of after the company shut down in 2010, we dabbled in a handful of different things, just anything to pay the bills. At the time, really the only work going on was there was some national tenants that were kind of scooping up defunct retailers, like specifically we got involved in a handful of projects where they were turning Hollywood video locations into some kind of like 24-hour emergency clinic type things. And so we were
Okay.
just doing miscellaneous stuff just to pay the bills. We were doing concrete cutting and demolition. We did a little bit of acoustical ceiling work, and so we did. I say we, myself and like one key employee that stayed with me. We did that for a couple of years, and then in 2013 it started to pick back up, and then we just started doing the kind of general commercial building construction. We were doing a lot of remodels and TIs and things like that.
Okay. And I think you along the way you've been saying we and your partner, did you stay with your same partner, or has
No,
anyone?
so we split ways, and so 20, current like after 2010, I didn't have a partner, so it's just me, and then I have, we've kind of had a couple key employees like through the early years of the current, 2010, 2011, 2012. I basically had one employee during those years, and then it picked back up. But so it's just me at this point. I don't have any business partners.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I bet a lot of people, a lot of probably boys secretly envy anybody who's a contractor, because you get to build stuff and all that stuff you love to do as a kid.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I mean, I do enjoy. There's something fun about the physical nature of building things. It's fun.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And how did you segue into like investing in multifamily?
So yeah, so as a contractor in 20, I don't know, 2015, 2016, we started doing a lot of work for some senior living owners. And we were just, purely as a contractor. We had made a couple of connections with some people, and I don't know, we did quite a number of different jobs, but it was through that we kind of got exposed to this world of investment property, because these were these were large senior living complexes, but they were owned by some kind of private investment groups. And so we got to sort of see a little bit of how the world worked, where, they would buy the property for X and then we'd go do this much work on it. And it was worth, whatever it was worth when we were done. And it was just kind of through that process that we sort of said, gosh, we're on the wrong end of this transaction. We need to be the owner, not the contractor. And then
Right.
I had also just kind of, I guess at that point I'd been a business owner for 16 years. And I had never really aggressively tracked net worth or any of that. It was kind of, I was, fairly naive when I got involved in it. And so at that point, I, you know, kind of started paying attention to what my net worth was. And I realized that all my net worth was tied up in a couple of real estate assets that we had purchased, and they weren't bought as investments. They were just bought out of necessity. Like I had a duplex that was my first house that I'd ever lived in. I had an office building that we had picked up because the construction company needed an office and we didn't want to pay rent. And then I had a piece of industrial property that had a small shop on it that we used as our construction yard. And it was kind of like, after being a contractor for 16 years, even though I had made an okay income, like my only wealth of sorts was these couple real estate assets. And then that kind of just really got me thinking about the idea that we needed to, start thinking about building wealth through real estate. So that was kind of that was what made me initially get into it. And at first, the plan wasn't to become a full-time real estate investor or a full-time developer. The plan was, I'm going to make money as a contractor, and then I'm going to buy one commercial building a year. And then I figured if I did that for the next 10 years, eventually we'd own 10 commercial buildings, and then that could be kind of our retirement. So it was a later in the process where I realized that I could actually just do this full time. I didn't need to actually make money somewhere else in order to invest it in real estate.
I see. And yeah, it sounds like so your first real estate was all functional. It was like your
Right,
shop,
right.
your
Yeah.
house. Okay. And then you started to just change the way you looked at it, looked at real estate
Yeah.
as purely investment.
Same as a lot of people. Once I got curious, I started reading, and I read some books. I started listening to some podcasts. I listened to a handful of the Bigger Pockets podcasts, and and that kind of just opened my eyes to it. And so, I mean, that ultimately led to us buying our first apartment building. We bought an 8-unit apartment building in 2018. And it was kind of traditional, like we were planning to burr it. We were gonna, buy it, rehab the whole thing, rent it out, refinance it, and then we were, planning to reinvest the capital.
And when you say we, is this your wife and you, or are
No,
you
well, it's
still
my wife
still
and
your
I.
partner?
It's my wife and I, but
Oh, it is.
it's kind
Okay.
of me and my company. At that point, I had a couple of employees, so it was, it's me and the team here. But yeah, that was that first one was, we bought it. We had a little bit of we had enough money for the down payment that we had, made through construction stuff, and so we used a hard money loan to buy it, and we bought an 8-unit apartment building and started our adventure in real estate investing.
Oh, cool. And where was the 8 unit?
It's in Sumner, Washington, which is just right next door to the city that our office is located in. It's kind of a good, you know, a nicer suburb of Seattle.
Of Seattle? Okay.
No, it's Tacoma. It's kind of a commuter city. It's 25 minutes from Tacoma, 45 minutes from Seattle.
Okay. Yeah, I've never been up to Tacoma, but been to Seattle a few times. Yeah, it's great up there.
Mhm.
That's cool. And so who is on your team now?
Well, so in terms of employees, well,
Like, are you like, is North 40 Capital operational now, or was that your construction company?
yeah, no. So the construction company is called BlackRock Construction. So the way we operate right now, and again, we're growing and changing and learning how to do this. I mean, we're not experts at this by any means, but so we have North Forty Capital is kind of our investment company, development company, whatever you want to call it. And
Okay.
so within that, we have our own property management company that has two full-time employees and a couple of part-time employees, and then we have kind of admin and finance in there. And we also have BlackRock Construction, which serves as a general contractor. And then they also have a maintenance division now. We just hired our second full-time maintenance guy. So we do all of our own general construction. We do all of our own maintenance. We do all of our own property management in-house.
Okay.
So that's our team. I don't even know what the exact employee count, but it's not huge. I mean, maybe there might be like 15 employees total when you count construction workers and such.
That's still pretty impressive. And you're pretty vertically integrated, it sounds like.
Yeah, I like that model. When we first got started, we didn't have a lot of intentionality. We just kind of figured we were gonna, we didn't know exactly what we were doing. We were just looking for any sort of a deal. And then as we bought a few things and we've done a few things and I've met more people and I've seen different people's models, like I really like the idea of being a kind of vertically integrated local operator. So like we're really focused right now on buying properties in the Tacoma area. And, I kind of envision being a fairly large local owner where we manage everything in house and do all the maintenance in house, and then we also would do the construction work as a GC.
That sounds great. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to being vertically integrated. And are you across different asset classes, or are you said you bought a multifamily, the 8
Well,
unit,
well, so I mean, we dabble. We have the office building, we have that little industrial building.
the
We
shop?
also
Yeah.
picked up a hotel.
A
Um,
hotel. Okay.
And but the rest of it's all multifamily, and even within multifamily, we have a few oddball. We kind of have a few things that we've picked up here and there. Because, like I said in the beginning, we were just looking for deals, and now we've really honed in on. We're really focusing on kind of a middle class product that's yeah, really close to the urban core. So like we're targeting 70s and 80s vintage garden style apartments as close into the urban core in Tacoma as possible. We want to kind of create a product that we can use to compete directly against new Class A stuff.
Yeah, that sounds that's a class of multifamily that I really like as well. The 70s, 80s value add, B class, C, even C class, but close to the urban core in major cities where you've got all that demand. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and there's no new development, right? Like I mean, you're down in Southern California, so you're a similar market. There's no land. I mean, there's no land close to downtown Tacoma where anyone's going to build new garden style apartments. So it's kind of like the only
right.
new product being introduced into the market is mid-rise Class A stuff, and so that just really pulls rents up. And then
Yeah.
if we can have like we kind of try to talk about our stuff as being B plus, and so we try to offer a pretty similar alternative to that Class A mid-rise stuff, but with the garden style setup, we have some things they don't, like space. You don't have to you don't have to take an elevator to take your dog out to, do his business in the morning, and we have balconies and more space. So that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and a lower entry rent for your renters. There's a lot of benefits, I think, especially at the economic stage we are now, where we might experience a recession. I know you've been around long enough to maybe have experienced like in 2008 there was there was an exodus from the A class into the B class. There's that, like, in the downturns, that A class is just becomes too expensive for a lot of renters. And then also, like you mentioned, for the last decade or so, all anyone is building is A class.
Right.
So there's a lack of inventory in the B and C class space, especially in expensive markets like Seattle, Tacoma, and
Yeah.
LA.
Yeah. No, for sure.
That's cool. What does your portfolio look like at this point? How many
So
units would you say?
we have 114 units today, and we have another 130 that we're in contract to close on in about 3 weeks. So we'll be at 244 plus a 52 room hotel.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I know. I like how you're vertically integrated, but you kind of have cookie cutter processes, but your asset classes are all over the place. You're in a lot of different asset classes, whereas I think we're the opposite. Like we all we do is multifamily, but I like your vertical integration that you have.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the multiple asset classes is probably just due more to the fact that we didn't know what we were doing early on, and we
Default, yeah, by default you
but,
inherited.
Yeah, I mean, but we've gotten more focused as we've grown up, I suppose.
Sure, I'm sure you'll find like, you'll find something that works really well, and then that will become the bulk of your investments.
Yeah, well, let's hope so.
So at this stage, who's on your team?
At this stage, who's on my team in term
Yeah,
again, like, are you talking employees or, kind of outside partners, or what are we?
I guess a little bit of both. Like, what does the structure look like?
So, I mean, so it's still, the structures, the internal structure is kind of what I described earlier, but we're starting to JV some of these projects with, with capital partners. So the first 64 or the first 60 units we bought were 100% ours. We had no outside partners. And then we started, then we bought a 64 unit building that we have an equity partner in, and then we're in this 130 units that we're closing on in a couple of weeks. We also have an equity partner in that. So, I mean, eventually, like we've not yet raised our own capital and syndicated. It's kind of been more of a JV type arrangement, but I mean, we're really focused on being the operator, and so we're trying, like, again, like kind of we want to be a large local operator here in Tacoma, and so we're kind of focused on that, and open to partnering with people who are interested in investing with us, but we haven't yet raised money from individual investors.
Yeah, I like that model a lot, and you're in a great market too. Tacoma is a good market, and partnering, JV is simple. Like I think, just by experience, raising funds in house, it is a lot of work. It becomes like the bulk of your efforts,
Right.
especially when you get into bigger deals.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've kind of realized from, I mean, through, just through kind of my network and knowing lots of other people who do this, it's like there's so many different ways somebody can, be successful and make money in real estate. It's really about what's exciting to you, like
Sure.
what do you want to do, and I like creating the product. The thing is, we take pride in the quality of our product. And so, being able to control the management and the maintenance and all of that is interesting to us, probably less so than raising money.
Yeah, right. And when you say creating the product, is it the value add aspect, or do you still do any of your projects include construction, like new construction to them?
No, nothing we're doing right now has any new construction. It's all value add, but we tend to find things that have a pretty heavy value add component. So, I mean, we'll do multi-million dollar kind of, remodels that'll include complete exterior, kind of complete exterior type redevelopment, not just flipping the units.
Right.
But I mean, we definitely consider ourselves to be value add investors. One thing we do, so internally, we talk about impact value. And, the way I kind of describe it to our employees and to anybody who wants to talk to me about value add investing is I would sort of say, that most, well, the market value of a apartment building is primarily made up of three things. You've got the intrinsic value of the housing product, like the physical space people live in, plus the services you can layer on top of it. And then you've got the market value of the rent. So it's whatever that particular product level is worth in your market. And then on top of that, you've got a cap rate, or, essentially what's an investor willing to pay for for that income stream from the rent. And the way we look at it is, the only one of those three things that we can control is that intrinsic value of the housing product. Ultimately, the market value of rent and the cap rate that an investor is willing to pay are somewhat out of our control. So we really focus on that. So when we say that we're a value add investor, we really strive to provide real tangible value that improves the quality of the people's lives who live in our units, not that we don't look for opportunities to reduce costs and raise revenues and all those types of things, but we really try to be focused on kind of the human impact that our products have.
Sure. So yeah, adding value to the residents rather than adding value to the investors, or you necessarily like
Exactly.
the
And,
operating
and I
team.
mean, obviously they're one and the same, right? Like the more, money follows the value. So it's like if you provide a higher quality housing product and you positively impact the lives of the people who live in it, that's going to command a higher level of rent, which will in turn translate to a higher asset value. But yeah, we really focus on the human, the human impact of the product we offer.
I love that. That's great. And there'll be lower vacancy and there'll be other benefits by serving your tenants.
Right. Certainly hope so. Yeah.
What's your biggest challenge in your business at this point?
I mean, at this point, we're kind of in a we're you know we've grown quite a bit recently. In the last, I mean, we're going to double our unit count here in another 3 weeks. So we're just kind of trying to digest the volume. The construction volumes. The construction volume is high, and it's a hard market right now to hire quality construction people, and so that's a challenge. And then we're kind of scaling up our property management practices from being a smaller kind of mom and pop owner to now having larger assets and a larger unit count, having to behave more like a big property management company. So I would say that at the moment, kind of the challenge is just the scaling up our capacity.
Sure. Are you leveraging either do you use like coaches or mentors or EOS or stuff, any of that when you know, in your situation as you're trying to grow
We,
that
we do use
help you?
we do use EOS. We've been following EOS for a couple of years now, and that's actually proven to be I mean, that's been extremely useful. I don't have any, kind of paid coaches, but I have a lot of mentors within my, kind of within my friend group. But yeah, so light on the coaching and mentoring, but we, have definitely been following the EOS model for a while.
Self by yourself, or do you get an integrator on that?
We've not, I mean, yeah, I've not yet hired an integrator, but I've talked to a number of people who have and been told it's kind of game changing. So we might,
Yeah, I keep hearing that. Yeah,
especially as our team grows. I mean, for the what, when we started, it was really just a couple people. We didn't have much of an organization, and now the team's starting to grow, and so it seems like there might actually be some real value in that.
yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, neither you or I are getting paid by EOS at all, but I've heard the same thing. I've heard it's good and it's helped a lot of people. Something we might be looking at as well.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of I read a lot, and so I'm a business book junkie. So I read all these different. I mean, there's a handful of other operating systems out there that are similar to EOS, and I don't know. Are you familiar at all with Vern Harnish's Scaling Up? I think it used to be called the
Oh,
Rockefeller Habits or something like that.
yes, I've seen that. I've had that. I have that book somewhere. Is that similar?
It is. It's actually. I mean, the thing is, I just read that fairly recently. Somebody recommended that I read it, and I did. And it's it's almost like EOS was you could almost it would almost seem like EOS was written as like the Rockefeller Habits for Dummies. Like they took a relative, like the way if you read Vern Harnish's Scaling Up, it's a lot more detailed and involved than EOS. But in some ways, it provides. I think the complexity of it kind of provides a little bit better clarity as to sort of the why behind some of the EOS methodology. I mean, I
Oh,
actually
really?
liked it a lot. I mean, I kind of felt like after reading that, I had some increased clarity on how to implement EOS more effectively. Like
Oh,
I felt like there's some things when maybe the basic EOS model is almost too simple, and like having a little bit more clarity as to why it's the way it is
sure.
helped me figure out how to apply it to our business.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it does seem like there's variations on the EOS. The Don Wenner, I forget, building elite
Yeah,
organizations
yeah,
might
Bill,
be the
that
name.
was a good one too. Yeah.
That's kind of not in the same realm as EOS.
Yeah, same idea. Similar thing though. Like he kind of, I felt like his was like the other. There's another book called The Four Disciplines of Execution, and it's kind of another operating system type book. And I felt like Don Wenner's was a really interesting blend of those two. It was kind of like the 4DX model blended with EOS, and he kind of made his own version. That I mean, I think his version seems like the advanced class, but it does seem like it was a cool system, cool book.
Yeah, I like that. What's a daily habit that brings you the most benefit?
Definitely reading. I mean, I
Reading.
would if there was one, yeah, I mean, the thing is in my mind, reading's by far the most beneficial thing I do every day.
Yeah. How many kids do you have?
3.
3. What were their ages?
I have a 10-year-old girl, I have a 13-year-old son, and I have an 18-year-old daughter. And so the 18-year-old just graduated high school.
Oh, cool. I have a daughter going off to college in about 8 days. I got to take her.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, we're a little like college around here isn't going to start till September, but yeah, she's we're right at that same stage.
Okay. That's fun and sad, leaving the nest.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Like ours will actually live at home for the first year at least, so that's not bad. But
Oh, great. Oh, that's nice. Nice. That's awesome. How important is mindset to your success?
I would rate it as extremely important. I don't know. I'm a big believer in, mindset and kind of identity and environment and just sort of the all the ways in which those types of things sort of subconsciously pull you towards things. So I would probably say there's nothing more important than mindset to success.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I agree. Let me see. Okay. Well, this has been great. Are you ready for our question round?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, here we go. We've already touched upon this, so maybe this will sound a little repetitive. The book you've recommended most over the past year.
Well, to say something I didn't already say, so and this is probably honestly the book I've recommended most. It's a book by General Stanley McChrystal called Team of Teams. And I don't even know how I found out about it. It was kind of I probably down some rabbit hole on Amazon reading recommendations. It's a really cool book written about how the kind of the traditional hierarchical view of the military no longer works in the modern world, and then there's a lot of business applications, but basically this idea of creating teams of teams as opposed to hierarchical structures. It was a very interesting, eye-opening read.
Oh, cool. Did you go to West Point
No,
last year? Okay.
no, I didn't do that. No, I did not go on the West Point trip. Did like so no I no I haven't.
All of the classroom stuff was about that, and it was fascinating. It was talking about exactly that how they had to revamp the entire military to be, for 200 and some years the US military had been a top down organization, and
Right.
they had to go from a bottom up where all the intelligence had to be on the gathered from the lowest members of the military who are out
Yeah.
in the field.
Well,
So it sounds like
it's a cool book. So, we don't have to get deep into this, but General McChrystal, Stanley McChrystal he was the head of the counterterrorism force in Iraq when they were going after Al Qaeda in Iraq,
okay. Yeah.
in kind of the early 2000s. And he says that they initially went in there thinking that this was going to be a relatively easy fight, and totally underestimating their opponent. And he kind of tells the story in the beginning where something like 17 times they thought they took out the number 3 guy before somebody raised the question of whether or not there was a number 3 guy.
No
We're like,
way.
maybe this organization doesn't look how we think it looks because we keep thinking we take out their number 3, and then and so yeah, they just basically realized that their methods of warfare were way too slow, and they had to move information faster and make decisions faster, and they couldn't kind of rely on the hierarchy. So
Wow. Yeah.
really interesting.
Fascinating. I was fascinated. I way more than I ever thought I would be when they got into all the specifics of it. And it's exactly what you were talking about. Is like it was for the first time. He said it started with Vietnam, that for the first time you didn't know where your enemy was, or you didn't know who your enemy was.
Yeah. Well, and they talk about in the modern world, when you live in a world where somebody making a tweet in one hemisphere can set off a civil war in another hemisphere, it's like it's just completely unpredictable. There's
Right.
no it's kind of like the level of complexity in the modern world has gone beyond people's ability to somehow map out the moves like chess pieces and plan. It's kind of like you've got to be able to react to unexpected actions,
Yeah.
in real time.
Yeah. Fascinating. What was your favorite movie when you were 15?
Favorite movie when I was 15 would have been Last of the Mohicans.
Last of the Mohicans. Is that Daniel Day Lewis?
It is. It
It
is.
is. Okay.
Probably still one of my favorite movies. I don't even know why I like it so much. It just that I've always loved that movie.
I don't know if I ever saw saw the whole thing, but I remember he was in it. I remember it being out. Aside from real estate, one thing you could spend all day talking about.
I like talking business. I'm not a big politics guy. I mean, like I can talk politics, but I certainly probably wouldn't choose to spend all day doing it.
Right.
Um, you know, I like, we've got I like hunting. I guess that's probably a better answer. I'm a hunter, and and I also have an off-grid cabin in Eastern Washington, and I can get into all of that. So, I
Oh,
can definitely
cool.
I can talk hunting, I can talk off-grid living, solar power, all of that kind of stuff. So that's probably my, second passion beyond real estate and business.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, me living down in LA for the last 23 years, like I'm envious of I'm picturing like the Eastern Washington wilderness. It
It's
sounds fun.
it's it's pretty cool. Yeah, like we have 40 acres, and with a little cabin on it, and we're about 15 miles south of the Canadian border, but it's all public land around us. So you could literally walk from our property to Canada on public land.
No
It's
way.
very, very remote, very beautiful.
Awesome. Amazing. What decade created the greatest music?
Oh gosh. I mean, all of my favorite music came out of the 80s. So, I mean, I know that there's a strong argument for people to claim that's, like 91 was the best rock year ever or
Right.
something like
Especially
that. But like,
people,
yeah, I'm going to go with the 80s.
a person from Seattle who doesn't say the 90s are the best.
I know, I know. You know, we still, you still can't go into anywhere without hearing Pearl Jam or Nirvana. Like it's
Are
just
you are
an
you
anthem.
serious?
Yeah, it's crazy how popular that kind of music still is in Seattle.
Wow. Okay. Okay. What was your most awkward year?
My most awkward year, gosh, I'm gonna probably go with, something like 92, 91, 92, freshman, sophomore year in high school.
Okay.
I was a misfit kid who, uh, had no idea what I was doing. And I'm sure I was awfully awkward.
Yeah. That's great. And finally, how can viewers reach out to you?
Well, they can, I'm on Facebook. People are welcome to email me. My email is Daniel at blackrocknw.com, like Northwest. I've got, you can go to our website, North40Capital.com. One of these days, I'm going to get an Instagram account and start doing something with it, but I'm not very,
You're like
I'm not very out there right now on social media. I've just on Facebook.
you're like me. It seems like a lot of work.
It does. We both know lots of people who are extremely skilled with working the Instagram
Yeah.
thing, but it does. I mean, part of me looks at it and is a little envious, and part of me looks at it and just like rolls my eyes. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I'll end up on there or not, but we'll see.
Yeah. Awesome. And we'll put your contact in the show notes. But thank you. Yeah, what a fascinating discussion and learning about your bridge building and all your other assets. It sounds cool.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I appreciate you having me on. It was great.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for joining us for the Wild West Real Estate Show. If you like what we're attempting to do here, please subscribe so we can continue sharing these with you. And if you want to check out our website, it's quantumcapitalinc.com. You'll find podcast episodes as well as multifamily properties we're looking at and how you could potentially participate. Look forward to seeing you guys soon on the Wild West Real Estate Show.